misaligned reward system. So I ran into this one. I worked with a team where we figured out, they thought it was a training issue. And we figured out that because people weren't doing certain tasks, and we figured out that the reason they weren't doing the tasks was they were incentivized to do other tasks. So if they took on these tasks that weren't getting done, they were actually going to make less money.
Hello and welcome back to the Leadership Launchpad and our discussion series with learning and training leaders at the DevLearn conference in Las Vegas. Today's discussion is with Jess Almlie. She's a good friend of mine. I've gotten to know her very recently. She's a strategic learning and talent development consultant. She's also the author of the book, L&D Order Taker No More. That book is targeted at learning folks like myself and how to transition ourselves from the kind of people who sit there and just let the business tell us what to do to how we can better work with and influence the business. And so I thought she was the perfect person to kind of flip that discussion on its head and have her talk to managers to help them understand what could managers do better to work with learning. And she had a really interesting answer. Her focus was basically a discussion around all the things that learning can't do. I think this is really important. I'm a learning professional. I want learning to solve a lot, but it can't solve everything. In fact, most problems that people come to a learning team or a training team with, honestly, they're not actually training problems. And so she gives some excellent questions that you as a manager can ask so that you can properly identify what is a training issue, what isn't a training issue. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Jess, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited for the conversation.
Same. I can't wait.
Yeah, excellent. So you just released a book, L&D Order Taker No More.
Correct.
What's kind of the premise of the book? What's the heart of that book?
The heart of the book is how learning and talent development teams can be more effective working with business.
Exactly. And so for this conversation, given the audience, I kind of want to flip that.
Yep.
Specifically with managers.
Yep.
What is one thing you wish managers knew about training?
Well, training can't solve every problem. We would love for it to solve every problem, but it can't solve every problem. There are some very specific things it can solve, and then some things that it can't.
Yes.
So that's one thing I wish I know. We can, however you want to expand from there, we can go.
Well, the direction I'd really like to go with this, because I think we've talked in this series around how learning, it takes a community, it's a process, there's lots of pieces to it.
Sure.
But around this idea that training can't solve every problem, from a manager's perspective, what are some ways they should be analyzing the performance challenges of their team to figure out what can training do and what can't training do?
I love this question. So there are a number of things that you can think about as a manager when you think about performance of your team in general. You can break it down to a number of different categories and just think about, or maybe ask some questions or figure out, is this potentially what's impacting performance? It might look like it's a training issue. So first of all, the only thing that training can solve for is a lack of knowledge and skills. So if somebody doesn't know how to do something or they don't have the skills to do it.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other things that influence the performance on our teams.
Yeah.
And they can influence performance in positive ways or negative ways. So I'll give you a couple examples.
Yeah.
Number one, the processes on our team. If we have really solid processes and workflows and they work really well, that will help our team to be successful. But if the processes are clunky, then we need to fix the processes. And a training will not fix processes.
Yeah.
So one thing to look at is the processes on your team.
Interestingly enough, that's always the first place I go, in the companies that I work with that are usually growing startups. Everyone knows documentation always lags everything. Nobody likes to document stuff. But unless you have your process documented, unless you've defined good, you don't have anywhere to start with training. And so, that makes a lot of sense.
Unless you've defined good and you know that good works.
Yes.
So you've seen it in action and it's not clunky, for example.
Yes.
Another thing that training cannot solve for is a manager who won't give feedback. So we can train a manager how to give feedback and how to do coaching, because that's the knowledge and skills gap. We can't make that manager do it.
Yes.
So if that is the issue, then that requires a different approach. We need to solve for helping that manager, getting that manager to the point where they're giving the feedback. We can't do that in a training class.
Yeah.
So that's another one to look at.
That's such a great example of how interesting, like training can't solve every issue, but training may be involved in some way.
Sure.
Because it could be they're not getting feedback. There might be a training intervention to give them feedback.
Yep.
The same could maybe be true for the structure and processes. Maybe there's a production planner or something that doesn't have the knowledge and skills they need, but it's still not the root. The training isn't the root of your problem. You're going to have to do some other intervention.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see. Another one would be misaligned reward system. So I ran into this one. I worked with a team where we figured out they thought it was a training issue, and we figured out that because people weren't doing certain tasks. And we figured out that the reason they weren't doing the tasks was they were incentivized to do other tasks. So if they took on these tasks that weren't getting done, they were actually going to make less money.
Yeah.
And so then they're not going to do it. So, but training wouldn't have fixed that. We needed to realign the bonus structure on that team first.
Yeah.
And then if they're still not doing it, come back, we'll have the conversation about training.
Yeah.
So that's another one.
Interesting.
That can influence because what gets rewarded gets repeated.
Of course.
I don't know if you've said that before, but I know I've said it a lot in my leadership days.
Yes, that's definitely, it's just like what gets measured gets managed.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly right.
Exactly.
So how do you suggest managers utilize this? I think sometimes, if training teams are doing what you're probably coaching them to do or hoping they do, is they're asking some of these questions, I would assume. How does that conversation normally go? What can managers bring to that conversation to make sure it's a productive conversation and not kind of like a finger pointy kind of thing of everybody trying to place blame on each other or something?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Ted Lasso. You Ted Lasso fan?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Ted Lasso says, be curious, not judgmental.
Yes.
That's a big thing.
Yes.
So I think if you're meeting with your training team and you're just curious about, hey, is there any way that will training solve this? Could there be another option that we should be considering? I think just even being open to the fact that you can explore what that problem and that solution is together.
Yeah.
And it might not be training, but those people can all definitely be your partners in asking questions to help you think about whether or not training will solve it.
Yeah.
So expect those training people to be your partners and be open to having the conversation that just because I'm talking to you and you're a training person, training might not be the answer, but you can help me figure out what might be.
Yeah. So help me make the case, because if we have this productive conversation, we identify, okay, training's maybe not the core issue. It's something else. But you know what? I as the manager, I don't have any control over that. And it's going to be really, really hard for me to try to change the compensation structure of my team or something. But I still want to do something. So let's just do some training anyway. Help me make the case that that's a bad idea.
Well, if we're just doing training anyway and it is not solving a problem, to be honest, we're wasting everyone's time and resources.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the case. You can pull everybody off your floor.
Yeah.
Add up all the time that you're spending.
Yeah.
And add up the time it takes to create and deliver the training. That's what your actual cost is. And if you're spending that amount of money to not solve a problem, is it worth it?
Yeah.
That's the question I would ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it worth it just for the people to feel good and like they did something, or what's the actual reason behind that?
Because that is a good point. I do think there is a certain, you can kind of decide to bite the bullet, for lack of a better word, and say like, no, but we want the employee engagement side of this where the core goal might not be performance change, it's team building or something else. And I guess I could see it.
Then I think we just state that that's the core goal.
Yeah.
And we're very clear on that. We're not training to change behavior at this point.
Yeah.
The reason we're getting together in a room is to build camaraderie or to get to know each other better or whatever. But we're clear on that. That's the goal. That's what we're headed towards.
Yeah.
We're not trying to change something. So as long as we're clear on it and we're all okay with that, then I think that's a different type of conversation. That's
a really important point that hasn't come up in this series, that I do think it is important to realize there can be different intentions to do training. Mm-hmm. And I think as long as everybody's agreed that this is what we're trying to do, it can be okay, as long as you're kind of eyes wide open about. Yeah, we're not expecting different results from what it is we're doing. So we know, okay, this isn't going to solve the problem, but getting our team together
We're going to have more camaraderie. We're going to be looking for a more collaborative process in the end, something like that. That's our goal.
Yeah.
All right. If that's our goal, we can be okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Jess. It's been great.
Welcome. All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening in on the conversation. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. If you are a manager yourself and you're looking for more insight onto how to better lead your team, please make sure to check out some of our other amazing episodes. If you are responsible for developing leaders in your organization and you're struggling to make programs that actually change behavior and actually impact the business, please reach out so we can figure out how to make your organization better every day. Drop me a line using matt@bettereverydaystudios.com. I look forward to the conversation.